Welcome to another interesting and educative episode of the Global Health Pharmacist Podcast. Last episode was about maternal health and rights, right? If you haven't listened to that or if you haven't watched it, please make sure to do so after this one. I say that because today's episode is kind of connected to that one, because I decided to kickstart the drug discovery series of the podcast for the year today. You see, it's been a long time coming. I've had different episodes of the drug discovery series, in the past, but for this year, today marks the first episode of the drug discovery series for the podcast, and it serves as a sequel to the International Day for Maternal Health and Rights, which was last week. And also, this ties into cesarean section awareness, which runs throughout the month of April. So it is safe to say that April is the month of the mothers, health-wise at least. So I'll be discussing a drug very crucial to maternal health on today's episode. Well, without further ado, let's get right into it. The Drug Discovery Series is a part of the podcast where I tell you the stories behind many of the medications in use today and the individuals responsible for their discoveries. I take you through what brought about their discovery, how they were discovered. It is important, in order to bring a human side to science, to let you know the importance of the works behind the scenes and the importance of these drugs you come across sometimes, or even those you come across every day. See, some drugs are discovered by accident, through sheer luck coupled with keen observation, the likes of penicillin that I've talked about in past episodes of the Drug Discovery Series, while others are discovered through deliberate, painstaking research spanning decades, the likes of nystatin. If you haven't listened to the previous episodes of the Drug Discovery Series, this is your cue to do that, okay? And some are even discovered through a mix of both, the painstaking research or keen observation, or even by sheer luck, through a mix of all this. Such is the case of the drug I am discussing today. It is known as the love hormone because it occurs naturally in the body, because it's an hormone, and it is actually the first synthetic hormone ever produced in the lab. When we talk about maternal health, we often focus on the who, the doctors, the midwives, the mothers, the nurses, the pharmacists as well who make these medications. But today, I want to talk about a what? Specifically, a tiny molecule that has saved more lives in the delivery room than perhaps any other discovery in medical history. And this molecule, or drug as you may like to call it, is called oxytocin. This drug is very crucial to maternal health, especially during delivery. It has prevented thousands, if not millions, of maternal deaths from a birth complication called postpartum hemorrhage, which is a fancy word for saying bleeding after childbirth. And this, in fact, is the leading cause of maternal mortality during childbirth worldwide. Now, why do we call it the love hormone? This is because it is what helps us to bond. Okay, when we talk about bonding, that feeling of love between the mother, the child. But in the world of obstetrics, it is the gold standard for safety. It's not just about bonding. And it wasn't always a vial sitting on a pharmacy shelf. The journey to get this drug was a 50-year scientific detective story. So, let's go back to 1906 when it all started. A British pharmacologist named Sir Henry Dale was experimenting with extracts from the pituitary gland of oxen. The pituitary gland in the body is the master gland which is responsible for the release of different endogenous substances, different hormones that regulate the body, okay? Why Sir Henry Dale was experimenting with the pituitary gland of oxen? I don't know. But as scientists, we are curious people and we tend to experiment a lot. He noticed something incredible. When he applied this extract from the pituitary gland of oxen to uterine tissue, it contracted. He realized that he had found a natural chemical trigger for labor. He named it oxytocin, which literally translates from Greek as swift birth. But there was a massive problem. Back then, if a doctor wanted to use it to stop a woman from bleeding out after birth, they had to use actual animal extracts. It was impure, the dosage was unpredictable, and it was incredibly expensive to produce. Imagine having to kill one oxen just to get a tiny extract. Only God knows how many oxens will have to die when you're trying to deliver a baby of one woman. So fast forward to nearly 50 years later, the world has changed, but we still hadn't figured out how to build oxytocin in a lab. Enter Vincent Duvillard, a chemist at Cornell Medical College. Duvillard was obsessed with sulfur-containing produce that hold proteins together. Proteins are amino acids and there are sulfur bridges in the structure of amino acids. So, in 1953, he did what many thought was impossible. He mapped out the exact sequence of the 8 amino acids that make up oxytocin, and then he synthesized it. This was a massive milestone for humanity. It was the very first time a polypeptide hormone had ever been created in a laboratory. Because of this, he won the Nobel Prize in Chemistry in 1955. But the real prize wasn't the medal. It wasn't really the Nobel Prize. It was what happened next. This takes me to how this hormone's impact moved from the laboratory to the labor room. Because Duvillard figured out the recipe, pharmaceutical companies could finally mass produce a pure synthetic version known as pitocin, unlike the impure one that cyanidale had to get from oxen, right? So this is a step forward, or several steps if you like. Suddenly now, doctors didn't have to rely on animal extracts. They had a predictable, reliable tool to induce labor when a baby was in danger, and more importantly, to stop postpartum hemorrhage. Before this, uncontrolled bleeding was a primary death sentence in childbirth. It still remains a death sentence though, but thank God that oxytocin is now readily available for use. Synthetic oxytocin turned that tide. It moved us from hoping for the best to having a clinical standard of care. Now, let me tell you 5 facts about oxytocin to close the story of mine. The first is that oxytocin, as I've said earlier, was the first polypeptide hormone to ever be sequenced in the lab. And this was done in 1953 by Vincent Duvillard, the chemist, and it earned him the Nobel Prize for Chemistry in 1955. The second fact is that unlike most hormones that stop when a certain level is reached, oxytocin works on a positive feedback loop. I've mentioned about the negative feedback mechanism on many episodes in the past, whereby when an hormone is produced to a certain level, it sends a message back to the brain, to the pituitary gland to stop producing because there is enough. But for oxytocin, the reverse is the case. Once there is oxytocin in the bloodstream, the message is sent to the pituitary gland to release more. So the presence of this synthetic oxytocin in the bloodstream causes more oxytocin to be released, and this release causes contraction that tells the brain to release more until the baby is born. Okay, the third fact is that once it enters the bloodstream, oxytocin only lasts about 3 minutes, which is why doctors can easily adjust the dosage precisely during labor via an IV drip. So there is no case of, we have given an overdose of this or an underdose of this. It can easily be adjusted, which is a very good thing during childbirth, which is usually life or death situation for both mother and child. Number 4 fact is that it's not just for labor. Oxytocin is the primary hormone responsible for let-down reflex in breastfeeding. It helps the milk to move through the breast tissue so that the baby can feed. So when you're feeding your baby, just know that oxytocin is the hormone responsible for that. And number 5 fact, this is the unusual one. It is a social glue because oxytocin isn't just for moms. Research has shown that oxytocin levels also rise in partners and fathers who live with a pregnant person, helping the whole family unit to synchronize and bond even before the baby is born. So, oxytocin is also present in men, just like other hormones, only at different levels based on gender. So, the husband of a pregnant woman also releases oxytocin, which helps him bond with her and even with the unborn baby, and even more with the baby once the baby arrives. How cool is that? So, next time you're going for delivery and you are asked to buy oxytocin alongside other medications, or you see it in the doctor's prescription, you would appreciate the work this wonderful drug does in ensuring the safety of the mother and the child, and also in helping to bond and in helping the mother to feed the baby. This is a very wonderful drug, if you ask me. Yeah, that's it on today's episode of the podcast. I hope you've learned something new. Do not forget to like, share, comment, and subscribe to the channel for more interesting and educative health content. Also, follow all over social media and engage our posts on Instagram, on Facebook, on TikTok. The Global Health Pharmacist Podcast is all there. It is the Global Health Pharm Podcast on TikTok, on Instagram with the underscores. While on Facebook, it's the Global Health Pharmacist Podcast. On X, it is at Pharm Podcaster, and on LinkedIn, I'm there as Benisola at BBC Joseph. Thank you so much for staying with me up to this point and for listening. As always, I encourage you to leave your comments. Tell me if you have heard about oxytocin before, or if you haven't heard about it. Tell me something new that you have learned today. I would like to know that. Till next time, stay healthy and God bless you. Bye.